our sponsor. Without our sponsors, NewMexicoWomen.org. Just before I talk a little bit about NewMexicoWomen.org, we will be recording this session. So if you are not comfortable being on camera, you can leave your camera off. So our sponsors are NewMexicoWomen.org. This is our third healing community intergenerational healing panel. And NewMexicoWomen.org is an organization that funds opportunities for women and girls statewide. They pursue to educate through research and communications. NewMexicoWomen.org brings public attention to the issues affecting women and girls with an eye towards influencing policy and philanthropy. They have been a long-term relationship with us. We've been able to host healing panels and summer programs, and also book clubs. So I'd like to give them a huge shout out. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our amazing panelists. Oh, before that, there's just a few reminders that I would like to share. And one of them is to keep your mic on mute. We'll have a Q&A at the end. So if you all have any questions or any thoughts or ideas that come up while the panelists are speaking, we'll have a section for Q&As at the end. I did mention that our session today will be recorded. And so if you aren't comfortable being on camera, just leave your camera off. And then for the panelists, we have a lineup of 5 questions, and you aren't obligated to answer every question, but if you would like to answer a question, please use your raised hand icon, and we'll make sure that you are heard. If you're just jumping on, let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from, zooming in from. So our opening blessing was given to us by Elder Cathy Sanchez. She is a co-founder of Tewa Women United. She's a spirit-rooted social activist, community educator, and traditional Blackware potter from San Ildefonso. Her work includes developing transformative tools such as the two-rolled harmony butterfly model and trauma healing rocks, which addresses integrative wisdom of healing, colonial trauma of mind, body, heart, and spirit, all from Native women's lived perspectives. And our next panelist is, or our first panelist is.
Our first panelist is Lavina Gawanya Gray, a Mohawk artist from Akwesasne. She is currently attending the Institute of American Arts. Lavina draws and paints about whatever comes to her naturally. She focuses her work on self-reflection through self-portraits, and she's able to explore her identity as a human in that process. So everyone give a heartfelt inside applause for Lavina. Welcome, Lavina. Thank you for being here. This is some of Lavina's artwork that she shared with all of us. She plays with mixed medium.
Next slide, Michelle. Next up, we have Chasity Salvador. Chasity is a seed keeper, young farmer, full spectrum community doula, and poet from Acoma Pueblo. Her latest work has been focusing on growing medicinal herbs for her physical healing and dispersing vulnerable Pueblo seeds to community in need. She is in the final stages of publishing her book on collective healing, which includes a collection of poetry, essays, and guidance on healing from trauma, grief, and chronic illness.
Chasity continues to experience impacts on her health from COVID and has low capacity to speak, so we will all be understanding and attentive to that in this space.
Welcome, Chasity. All right, next up we have Rafa Turin. Oh no, yeah, Rafa Turin. Go ahead, Alex.
Rafa is a multidisciplinary artist whose work explores the cosmology of their Chicanx indigenous ancestors. They work and play with their chosen family in unceded Picari territory. Welcome, Rafa. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This is some of Rafa's artwork that they shared with us.
Beautiful. Next up, we have Autumn Gomez. Autumn Don Gomez is from Comanche tribe in Taos Pueblo. She is a community-based muralist, graphic designer, and multimedia creator. Autumn is based in the north central Rio Grande Valley, where they were born and raised. Autumn is the lead artist for Three Sisters Collective, and their latest collaboration is on view at the Allen Hauser Sculpture Park at the Museum of Contemporary Native Art in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Welcome, Autumn. And then we'll show some of her artwork. All right, so we can go ahead and get started with the panel. Welcome everybody for joining us today. I'm super excited to talk about art and healing and art as activism. And so the way it's going to work, like I mentioned before, is we're going to ask a question and our panelists will raise their hand to answer. Please feel free to comment in the chat, but we will have a Q&A at the end. And so our first question is, what is your relationship to art? And how has this relationship transformed throughout your experiences with art, your life experiences? I don't see hands. For some reason, I can't see everyone. Would anyone like to answer the first question? What is your relationship to art?
I can answer that. Yoho, Bantu Bapu, Emma, and Maraweka Nananya Tsayuani. I'm really happy to be here. My relationship to art began as a child, of course. My mom's an artist, my dad's a musician. And I just was lucky enough to grow up surrounded by art. And as the person I am, with the way I present myself, and with like just like how life is in general, I have come to the realization that my artwork, whether it's with sounds or with videos or by drawing or by writing, is like greatly surpasses my vocal, my words, my conversational abilities. So yeah, I feel like that's like the way I can really communicate my true self, the things that go overlooked in like the English language especially. There are emotions and there are things that, you know, you just can't name in English. And, you know, we probably have words for them in our indigenous languages. But for me, the way I express those ideas is through my artwork. Thank you.
I saw Lavina had her hand up. Thank you.
Yeah,
Autumn.
sorry. Yeah, I totally agree. It's like art making is like storytelling without words, like, because everybody has their own different experiences, and we're able to create like these extensions of ourselves that will like live beyond us. And it's something that we can like develop throughout our whole lives, and we can choose to like use it as a platform to like raise issues and like present them to any sort of community. And I don't know, it just like allows us as visual communicators to process or like reflect on our atmosphere. So it's a lot, it's like very like, for me at least, it's very intuitive and like almost meditative, even though sometimes it can be like very stressful. But yeah, it's just something that, I don't know, it gives us like it gives us a way to share our experiences as like a diverse community.
Awesome. Thank you, Lavina. Yeah. Does either in speaking about that, I feel like what's coming up to me when you all are talking about like processing like emotions and like things that you can't necessarily like define with words is like a practice called body mapping, where you go to different points in your body and you draw them out and you put them with the color and what's the feeling is there, and you go through like layers of sensations that you have, and through that process of just feeling them and drawing them out, you're able to release at the same time too, and unclench as well. Does anyone else want to answer the first question of how would you express your relationship to art? How has this relationship transformed throughout your personal experiences with art?
Cool. Thank you all for sharing. We can go. Oh, Chas, would you like to go?
Yeah, I can share. Can you see my hand?
You're cutting out, Chasity.
So I have been writing poetry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can
Does
hear
it
you now.
sound better?
Yes.
We got you, Chastity. Take it away. Do your thing. All right, it looks like Chastity might be having some technical issues right now. Rafa, do you want to answer the question, and then Chastity, direct message me in the box when you feel like you have access and want to answer the question again.
Yeah, Chess, you can also answer in the chat if that makes it easier for you.
Go ahead, Rafa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to speak in this panel. I think for me, it's that I agree with what folks said about it. And I also, from my personal experience, it's kind of a lifeline to myself and to what I think about what's going on in the world, or what I think about what's happening in my life. And even if the pieces don't necessarily reflect that visually, that's internally, like things are going on internally. And sometimes, yeah, visually they reflect it. And sometimes it's just the process that I need to go through, like emotionally doing that work, or in whatever way, to like get closer to myself, really. And I mean, I think that art is all kinds of things. Like, it's, as an artist, I've been an artist my entire life since I was a small person. And it's a way of orienting to the world. It's a way, I feel like, orienting to yourself. And the ways that I know for myself that it allows me to be present with myself in that moment. And no matter like what I'm doing, if I'm drawing or painting or writing, yeah, and for sure, like, tell our story and name things, all that stuff externalized, but really for me, it's about connecting to myself, my higher self, and to like whatever energy is coming, through me. That's what I feel.
Thank you, Rafa. I appreciate that answer. My younger daughter, she's an artist, and she'd rather draw than speak to people, than express herself in words. She'd rather draw. So I can see how it's a life source, life way for you. Thank you all for answering that question so elegantly. We can go on to the next question, Alex.
How has art been a tool in your process for self-expansion, inward or outward in the physical world? So how has art helped you expand within your own being, and also you're able to see physical changes or differences that either you're able to enact in the world, or maybe a perspective, expanding your perspective and what you let in from life in the world? So yeah, just if whoever, all right, Rafa, take it away, Rafa. Thank you.
Oh gosh, I didn't ever even lower my hand. I'm sorry. I don't want to say first. I don't like that. I'm sorry. I don't know how to work the Zoom good. That's what's going on over here. Sorry.
That's totally fine. Autumn, I see your wheels turning.
Well, let's see, lower hand. Okay, so like I was saying, I've always created art and I've always been like an artsy kind of kid. I went to IAIA as well, Lavina, like a long time ago. But I think that coming from that concept of art where like your art must be marketable, your art must be in a gallery, your art must be shown for SWAIA. Like growing up in Santa Fe and having like a different experience of what that art world really looked like made me wonder, how can I use this skill that I have and that I love and that I build for my mind and my spirit? How can I use that to benefit my own people? And so as a younger, it started out with like DIY and punk stuff and zines, hip hop. And then it grew into like today I was talking to Elder Cathy about a logo that she would like me to draw for her and the grandmothers. And the thing about collaborating with your community, which I have done several times now, and I'm pretty excited to say, is that you're just like channeling like all their hard work. I've done a lot of like birth work logos. You're just like channeling all this work that they do and working with community, you know, and you know how much we put our whole hearts into this kind of work. And so when you're able to channel that to come up with like a symbol for a community member or a group of community members, it's like a dare I say that it's magical. It's something that it's something that is like living and breathing like beyond yourself. And I really enjoy that. And I'm working at refining my process of working with community organizations and really getting them to really communicating really well with them so that we're able to give them exactly the image that they need, not that they want, but that they need. So short answer, helping people.
Thank you, Autumn. Yeah, these things that we intake and then we integrate and then we share them, and then they're tools for us and then they become tools for others, and it's like this exchange that just like naturally takes place when you're doing things and giving from that heart place. Okay. Does anyone want to go next for answering the question, how has art been a tool and process for self-expansion and outward expansion?
I will say I did appreciate what you said, Autumn, about being in an institution where the focus on your art was for market or being marketable, as opposed to community inspired or community led artwork. Lavina, go for it.
Oh yeah. I'm just, for me personally now, because I'm a student and I'm still trying to figure out like my place in the world of art and like what I want to do and stuff. But for now, it's just, it gives me like the chance to tune into my emotions, I guess, and it like engages my senses in like an indefinite way and like helps me to be conscious and learn more about like the relationship I have with myself. But I really I don't know. It's like just a lot of like questioning myself, I guess, on like how my process can inspire me to inspire others, or like for us to act on our beliefs and I don't know, like purpose or whatever.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that answer around inspiring others and using your art in an outward reciprocity. Rafa or Chas, would you like to answer the question?
Could you say the question again?
Yeah, it's how has art been a tool in your process for self-expansion, inward or outward in the physical world?
I can share a little bit. This is Chastity. Sorry about that. My phone. I'm in my car because it's really cold in my house, and my phone got really hot, so it just like shut off. It's like, yeah, becoming that time of the year. I would say that in addition to what everyone is talking about, I have been, especially in the past year, I have been writing a lot. And it's really given back to me and myself. And I think that that's what this year has been all about for me. I've been struggling a lot with my health, and it's been very isolating and it's just a big task. And I think that being able to write stories and poetry has been allowed me to get back to me, right? Like I think I've always been in this like limbo of trying to give to others, whether that be my family or my community or my friends. And I think it's really writing and like really reflecting on my life, reflecting on I think a lot of the way that I'm approaching my health now is seeing how I can release a lot of the traumatic events that have happened to me in a way that helps, calm my nervous system so that I can really move forward and like really plant myself in on this journey of I think it's going to be several years of struggling with what I'm struggling with. And yeah, so I think in a lot of ways that a lot of us are a group of people who like to help people, but I think art for me has especially been to help myself. It's been a lot of like commotion and chaos in my head and my heart. Just, when you first experience a onset illness, it's like, why is this happening to me? Like, what did I do in my my life that where I deserve this, but I've had to let go of a lot of that in order to start healing. And so writing has really allowed me to tap into me and how I have processed, again, like I said, traumatic events in my life. And it's been tough because it's like, why would I want to, write more about my trauma when I'm trying to heal from it? But it's like making me sit with that. And I was talking to another person who is healing from COVID too, and they're finding like, a lot of people who are experiencing lingering effects from COVID are people who were like exercising and well fit and like really going hard with their physical bodies even in their recovery, and they're finding that there's a lot of links to that. And so I was just saying yesterday how that's how I managed my pain. I was like a runner, and I would run all the time, and I would like challenge myself to run more miles than I did the last month. And now it's like, I can't do that. And so now I gotta just sit there and write and manage my pain in that way. So yeah, so it's been giving a lot to myself, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Chastity. Rafa, would you like to speak about this topic?
Sure, thanks. When folks were talking, I was listening and sort of thinking about, you know, like my outward, inward self or whatever. Like I'm a pretty shy person, and in some ways, like my art practice is just like my own internal thing. But then like putting art out into the world makes it like this its own entity, and there's like, oh, I'm supposed to, I think what maybe Autumn was saying about marketing, and like in capitalism, you produce, that's what we are, we're producers, right? So if we're not producing to sell, then what value is it that we're making? You know, like what is the value of the thing that we're making? And that's a constant struggle for me, because I want to make the things because I want to make them for myself, you know, in whatever way. And but then I also like I need to earn some money, right? And if that's the thing that I'm spending time doing, then I want to get paid for it, you know, in whatever way. And like, you know, trade or pay or, you know, whatever. And that's also real. So they're trying to figure out like sort of a balance of that, of what putting out and producing, and then what is just for myself. And I don't know, like self-expansion. I know it's a question I need to think about. I really appreciate like these questions and this conversation, because I don't talk to that many artists really, even though I am surrounded by artists. Like we don't have time, or we don't like spend time talking about, at least for me, like a certain type of creative process, or, you know, how we fit into the world as artists. But I know that we fit into the world, and I fit into the world as like part of a legacy of art creators culturally, and you know, that I find my place there, and that is kind of like a secure feeling, you know, for myself. So I don't know. That's kind of all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Rafa. I appreciate that response. We do a lot of work with our young people around Two World Harmony, which is a model that Elder Cathy created. And we talk a lot about, you know, inner and outer self, and like balance within ourselves, within our masculinity and our femininity and our indigenous culture, and like the Western society. And so it's really awesome to hear you all speak about the two world harmony in a way that is around like art and capitalism. So thank you for you all's beautiful responses. Our next question is, how can art be used as a healing modality? And I know Chasity covered this, talked a lot about this, but how can it be used as a healing modality within yourself, your family, and the community? And in it coming from a place of activism and community. Autumn, is that smile? I'll go first.
I'll go first.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like Chas, I have been going through my own medical, physical healing journey. It's not the same definitely as long COVID, but it's I think we relate a lot in our past year of experiences. And when I first like came out of that kind of situation, I was too tired to make anything. And as I grew stronger, I started having more ideas, and I just really needed to get it all out. So I think that everybody has kind of expressed that it's like something that they do for their mind and spirit, to process emotions, to process what's going on outside in the world around them, and to convey a message, right? Or to not convey a message, that's cool too. I was really thinking about this question in the terms of somebody who has helped youth and even adults in our creative process, especially with the murals. This past, was it November, December, we were working on the mural at Mokna in downtown Ogopoge. And it's just really cool to give somebody a paintbrush and be like, you're the artist now, make that definitive mark. Trust your mark making. If it's not perfect, we'll fix it later. I think that, like, as somebody who's like facilitating that and who gives like all your trust to another person to like help you help fulfill this design you drew or whatever, I think that like empowering people to like find that confidence in their mark making, find that confidence in the permanence, semi-permanence of what they're doing, like that's so cool. It's so cool to help people grow their confidence, and they may not call themselves artists at the end of the day, but that's what they're really doing, is they're creating art, and they're creating it around themselves and around their community. And as for healing with community, that has been one of like my greatest like moments of doing this type of work.
How do you, with what you're saying about like getting to be confident in themselves, I feel like especially when we go in through stages in our life when we're like, oh shoot, I messed up and now I'm really scared of what steps to take and what moves to make, like how do you get them to become comfortable again with like making self-appointed like choices and to like trust in themselves? Like what do you offer like them when you see that hesitation?
I guess you can't ever like really know that in a person, but when a person does hesitate, or when a person is like, I am not a very good artist, or I'm not an artist, or like they want to get into it, but it's not easy for them, I just let them know I trust them. And we have worked on like more free form murals in the past, and that's when people can really create whatever they like. But in the case of doing something that's like very plotted out, just telling people you trust them. And I think like for me personally, deciding where to make those marks and then making them is pretty important. It's confidence building. It builds confidence because you know that mark's not going to go away. You know that drawing's not going to go. And yeah, I don't know if that quite answers, but I think that trusting somebody to make their own decision and to do things their own way, I think that can be healing between the two people communicating.
I feel like it's a exchange or a practice of like holding, like okay, like energetically, if you look at it energetically, it's like, okay, you're gonna hold me now, and I trust you, and maybe that gives them the sensation of like, oh, like I can hold more, or I can do more, or I'm capable like of more.
We'll open it up for others to answer or to give their responses. Chas, would you like to talk a little bit about as far as using your art as a healing modality? And in your bio, you talked about publishing or working on your book around healing and trauma. And maybe your dreams of how your book will inspire others around their healing.
Yeah, I can share a little. So like I said, I actually started writing like deeply when the pandemic first started. And just like writing about my experience and just all these navigating the pandemic. And then I had realized that so where I wrote like my first pandemic poem was like down the street. It's this place, they call it like the sheep dip, because there's like a big sheep camp and or an old sheep camp, and it's like looking north towards the mountain. And like I wrote my first pandemic poem there, and then I had found myself there like 2 years later, right? Writing another poem about my illness caused by COVID. And then I was just like, whoa, this is full circle. Like I had really like prayed on, you know, like my family, my community, and those that I care about to find a lot of strength and health and healing, as we didn't know how COVID would go play out, you know. And so, and then really feeling that at a level where my lungs have been really impacted, and other parts of me have been impacted. And so I really, I guess, took that to heart and was just like, man, did I like plan or like manifest my own, like, I don't know, like it was just this moment for me of really taking in how much because the ways that we like, I'm learning, because I'm in like all of these courses on trying to, how do you heal from like chronic illnesses and illnesses that are you know, not so much studied. And so like a big part of it is like, well, if you experience like pain or chronic pain, that's coming from like inflammation in the body, right? And so like inflammation can come from like trauma and stress and grief and all these things. And it's like, well, okay, but what happens when it just like happens to you, you know? Like I don't know, I was going through a lot of those emotions of like anger and like really being like just like pissed off. Like, why do I have to go through this? I'm like 26 years old, and like I've had like lung problems, and I've had to go through, like they call it a VQ scan, which is like the state of the art exam of my lungs to make sure there's no like blood clots in there, because they're trying to figure out why I can't breathe, right? Because it's not asthma. I've done all the asthma tests, and it's not like a lung functionality test. It's more, it could be cardiovascular, it could be related to my heart. And so yeah, and thinking about like how to heal or how to like manage that big inflammation. And so I've just like, it really put me to sit down and think about how much I'm so open and so vulnerable. And I am so like, when I hear someone else struggling, whether that be with their bodies or financially or with their family, anything, like I take those stories like so deeply. Like, I don't know, I'm just such an empath. What is it called? What's the term? Can someone help me?
Empathic.
Empathic. Yeah. And I'm just like, I feel those things deeply. And when a lot of people were, you know, like passing in the community from COVID, there is a lot of grief. And I think too, I haven't fully processed one of my cousins that I was very close to, who had passed a few years ago. I didn't really process that. and we weren't like super close, but just that idea of like losing people while they're young, you know, like we don't talk about those things. And a lot of community, you know, getting or at least a lot of people in my circle have been getting a lot of illnesses that they're just like, whoa, like where is this coming from? And I think yeah, so for me it was just like writing out these stories and these experiences, and like what Alex was saying earlier, like body mapping where a lot of that grief and trauma sits in my body, and thinking about the ways that I have been traumatized, you know, in my young life with just life and I don't know, going through these experiences where I don't think I ever really sat with what has happened to me and felt where it hurts, like in my body. And writing that out has really, I guess, like has really helped me heal, or has helped me to um, gather that strength to heal. Because for months I was just like I really felt like I was like I don't know how to explain it. I felt like for months I was really taken from who I was, you know, and I think my family around me saw that. And then writing every day, just being like, this is who I am, this is what my life is, this is how beautiful my life has been. And I don't know, writing that has really just given me life to keep going. And so I think that writing it all like in a creative way, like with poetry and the essays, um, I hope like cracks open these like big inflammation or this big like grief and this big trauma that we all collectively feel. And you know, I'm like a big believer in that, like a lot of this like stuff just gets stuck, and unfortunately like it gets stuck in me. And it's like, how do we release some of that, or how do I like be responsible for myself and like release some of that stuff so that I can keep going forward. And I don't know, I think in this journey as well, like I've learned so much from mostly women in my community who are experiencing chronic illnesses, and just the crap like they've had to go through, right, to like navigate systems that are supposed to help them, like healthcare systems, but they don't. And or they're met with like, oh, it's just anxiety, oh, it's just panic attacks, oh, it's just like in your head. And it's like, no, these things like maybe, but like a lot of these things like manifest in the body. And so learning from them and being in solidarity with them, like I hope that like we can start to write, or we can start to like create art that helps us release some of these traumas. And yeah, I hope that answers the question. There's a lot more to it, but I'll just stop there.
Thank you, Chas. That was beautifully said.
Mm-hmm. I feel like listening to your story and your experiences and how you're advocating for yourself and managing your stress and soothing yourself and asking questions and asking to be held and sharing your story and looking for new tools and looking for new resources and having moments of heaviness and moments of lightness throughout your whole journey is really inspiring and has helped me to sit with myself more and want to expand more and to also accept myself more as I am and hold myself a little bit gentler. And I think that the people that you are also sharing yourself and your stories with are experiencing that too. So thank you.
Rafa or Lavina, would you like to share?
I can go. I really, really appreciate what Chasity said, and totally resonate with that as like a trauma survivor, as a person that's chronically ill. And I think it's like a piece of it is also about imagination, right? And like what I find, and sort of connected to what Autumn said, and in terms of like group process or collective collaboration, is like we can imagine something different, but we can't create something different unless we can imagine it, right? And even for ourselves, like in healing, in collective living, in a different time, in a different world, like all these things. And I think artists are the facilitators of that imagining. And that's why I think that we are like important beings in, you know, in this moment right now. And I also think that that's why, like, when they want to kind of shut down communities or disempower communities, one of the first things that happens is art funding goes away. You know, even though artists generate a huge amount of income, like in the larger, like in the GDP of the country or whatever, art and art practices and creators and musicians of all types of art, like contribute greatly to the economy, but we receive so little in return, you know. And like it's kind of off a tangent on healing, but it's totally related to healing, because what happens is then what we're doing becomes commodified and like taken away from us, right? And not where we can't even use it for ourselves, you know, because we can't afford to sometimes. And I don't know, I really appreciate, Chasity, your work and what you said and your experience, and like you know, like I'm really sorry that you're going through that struggle, because it really sucks to feel not well, like a lot or whatever, you know. And yeah, art is a lifeline. It's a lifeline. It's a lifeline for a lot of young people, that like I work with or have worked with. Like in some ways, it's the only avenue that they have to be themselves, you know, and whatever it is, performance, art, visual art, mark making, and that is what is art. Just make the mark, whatever it is, just put it down, you know. And yeah, I feel privileged to be able to be that lifeline for a lot of people, you know, like young people, and the work that we do here at the theater. We work, you know, the work that we do in schools or whatever. This is like in the before times, but you know, yeah, anyway, thanks.
Rafa, how do you feel like you focus yourself and help others with that production mentality and getting out of the production mentality, and that I don't have to be of a societal standard of production to be of value, and I can play and I can dance and I can flow like freely without having to view what I produce as my self-worth or my value. And I don't know if you want to maybe relate on that at all. Is what I noticed, like with the theater practices and what you all talked about, like before we would go out and work with the kids, is that like this isn't just acrobatics, this isn't just like gymnastics, this isn't just like stilt walking. When you get up on those stilts, like you're helping them like overcome fear. It's the right like place of holding them and the right amount of pushing them to grow and expand, and like teamwork and these other things that y'all are trying to instill by going through these exercises, not just as like individuals, but like in a circle, in their own little community, in a space that you create to be its community when within community.
I mean, you said it. You said it good. I think that it's about the process. It's not about the product. And I, you know, like when we do collaborative group work with young people, adults, young adults, whoever, you know, it is trying to hold a space for relationship building, for community building, for people finding their own voice within whatever space that is, you know, and to be able to collaborate together, to negotiate, to be able to talk about difference, to be able to talk about hard things, to think about the world around them. Like, all these things happen. All these things happen for me as an artist. Like, sometimes when I'm doing my work, like, it's research. I want to think about something as a concept. I look stuff up. I read. You know, whatever. And there's like a foundation to it. And it isn't always just like, you know, I'm gonna put it out or whatever. But you know, that takes like some thinking, so some thought skills and you know, whatever. But most of the work that we do is sort of process oriented. Yeah, they come up with something that they present or perform, but it's really, it doesn't matter. Like, there's no star. There's no, oh, this person's is the best, so they're in the front and all these other people are like in the back. You know what I mean? It's not about making stars. Like, we're already stars. It's about creating a space for people to be themselves, you know, and whatever level they're at and whatever it is, like, be yourself. That's the thing that I think that is the value. Like, we see young people for who they are, all different types of learners, all different types of movers, all different types of expression, whatever, and just try to make a space for that. You know, I don't know, being seen is a huge gift, you know, like to really see somebody, that can change your life.
Wow, thank you, Rafa. I had a question. This is for everyone, is around like, how has your art been committed to like the intersectional praxis acknowledgement of like identity-based disadvantages, such as like your gender or your indigenous identity or what's going on in the community. That also includes like the piece around like capitalism and being a show pony, for lack of a better word, as far as, you know, being indigenous and having to produce art that might not be indigenous enough, you know, for the community, the white community, or even people who are buying your art. That was a whole lot in one question. But just like, how have you worked through identity disadvantages? Lavina?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to sorry, answer both of those questions. So art in some situations is one of the forms of therapy that is like self-guided and accessible in different ways to everyone. And yeah, it's just like like a universal thing. And I don't know, I'm just very grateful for my family and all of the teachers and mentors that I've had that helped me to like look beyond what I know and what I understand, and to be curious and creative and intuitive and inspired. But on that last question, I feel like some of the art education that I've had was kind of harmful, because in high school I was one of the only non-white students there, and they tried to push me to like make art about my heritage to make more money for them from the white donors. And I was very, I don't know, I just wanted to like make art, you know, and it was kind of like, they were like, oh, well, you're not going to sell art unless you make art about being Native and like stuff like that. And I don't know, it's just a weird thing to go through, because I want to like express myself and I'm very proud of who I am, but I don't want to like exploit my culture just to make money. Yeah. And I don't know, but at the same time, like, I feel like by young Native people like having access to be like, sorry, let me think about how to word this. Like being a part of like the mainstream is important, because I feel like a lot of the time we're thought of as something of the past, but we've been like developing for thousands of years. And like, in a way, like I don't want to like make art about my cultural like identity, but doing that would like, I don't know, it's like fighting the erasure that the settlers attempted. But I don't know, it's just very complex, I guess. And yeah, thank you.
How did you advocate for yourself, Lavina, when you were experiencing that, like a push to like to be culturally focused in your creations, to receive more finances or for profit? Like, how did you advocate? Like, hey, was it like silent and you're like, I'm just gonna do, you could tell me whatever and I'm gonna do what I want to do? Or did you have to, like, were there moments where you had to be like, back off of me?
I don't know, I am very young, so I don't know, but I feel like I was just very like stubborn, and I wanted to do like the opposite of what my like white teachers were telling me to do. And like that was my way of like protesting their weird like boxes they were trying to put me in. I was like, no, I'm gonna make it about me, because I'm a person. Like, we're all people, we all have the same colored blood. Like, it's like not like, I don't know, it's like difficult, because it's like I'm like proud of who I am and where I come from, but I don't want to focus my art on a certain thing. I want it to be about me and just like in the moment and things around me and like things that inspire me. And yeah, I don't know, I think art shouldn't be like that. So yeah, I was just very like, don't tell me what to do. I'm not going to do that for you, especially if I were to do that, it would be for me.
It feels like what you're saying in that is like there's other ways for you to connect and express your culture, and for you art is not your space for that. It's a space that's all in encompassing. It's a space for where you're getting to know yourself more on like a soul like level and fluidity like within that, but to play as you want to play with it.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, like one day I might want to like explore that part like in my art, but definitely there's like, I'm not gonna like exploit it to like all these, sorry, like rich white people. Like that's not the place to do that, because I don't think it's for the right thing. It's like, I don't know, it's like, it's weird.
The intention behind why they're making that push. Yeah, thank you, Lavina. Autumn, I see your hand up.
Just the question Selena posed, it brought me back to something Rafa said about how it kind of sucks that people define how our art is valued. And I started thinking, with like, I don't have all the answers, but it is possible to create art and really control who values it. If I mean, I have a history of like not fitting in at all, so I don't think anybody was surprised when I didn't go like the normal artist route. I think I even had a writing teacher who told my mom, like, Autumn doesn't want to be a writer. I was like, I do want to be a writer, but not on your parameters, not on your terms. And yeah, I've been like that my whole life. But also what I have found through being a contrarian is that we can create a world of art that is by us and for us and doesn't necessarily need to be a product. I know that I have dabbled in products. It's really not my thing. I would rather be like logo designing for another person or doing my own personal work that no one will ever see ever. And but yeah, it just your question just kind of your question makes me want to kind of challenge everybody a little bit and say, yes, we know how they value our art, but let's start choosing who values our art and let's work together, because I am a testament to say you can at least make half a living on community-based art. Maybe I haven't gotten to like 100% income, but you can make a living on making art for your community and for your people. So that was just trying to think.
Thank you, Autumn. I love that answer. I'm definitely going to be quoting some of you all and posting it on our social media. Y'all have given us some amazing things to think about, and quotes that we'd love to share with the community. Would anyone else like to answer? I think as far as time goes, this would be our last question. And then we have a Q&A coming up. So if Rafa or Chas, if you would like to share.
I can share a little bit. I really like the conversation that's coming up around representation and who we do the art for. I think with writing, it's been really interesting because I've been dreaming about publishing a book for maybe like 4 years now. And at first it was like, oh, I want to publish it for all the Pueblo girls or all the Acoma girls for them to have something to read, and now it's just like expanded. My audience, I guess, has expanded. But I remember like in the beginning thinkings of that, and it's like still true to this day. I'm like, oh my goodness, like what's gonna happen when it just goes out there? Because I think part of like writing for me, for myself, and like documenting this process and documenting again, like writing about my traumas, it includes like some of the traumas that I've experienced from community members or people in my community or people in my family. And it's like, I don't know, it's like this, it's like, how do I explain it? Like, how is that going to come off, and how is that going to help another person, but also maybe not help me in this case, but like it's helped me by being able to express it and for me to like talk about these things. And so, yeah, I think I've always like every poem or every essay that I write is like the truth. Like I don't hold back. Because again, it's for me and the ways that I've experienced these things or that I'm experiencing these things. And so I think that like in the way that art is activism is that we really get to that truth telling, right? Because I think activism or advocating for ourselves and for our care and for our protection is about that, is getting to the root of like what's going on here and what's wrong and how do we heal it, or how do we advocate for change. And I think yeah, so I think part of that is like including that truth telling. And for me, like in writing and like the seed work and the farming work that I've been doing, like it's like all interconnected in that when I was doing a lot of seed processing last 2 years ago, or a year and a half now ago, like I was really thinking about telling the truth to myself of how much my relationship with my mother is like, she was just here actually, so I can talk about it now because she's not here anymore, but has just been so like what's the term, like troublesome. It's just been such a big part of my like upbringing that has been really hard for me, and then like wanting to explore that a lot more, and then also being like, oh geez, like what's gonna happen when she reads some of these stories, you know, and like hopefully it like is an opportunity for us to like dive into these conversations. I don't know, I'm kind of like going off topic now, but yeah, I think just that like when I do the art, it's like I want to tell the truth, but how are others gonna receive that?
I appreciate that response, Chess. I've definitely have personally gone through the same thing where I've written essays or poems that were around like my upbringing and like personal relationships, and how it's part of who you are and it's a part of your story. And it's also a part of like accountability, right, for families and for community. So I'm gonna just open it up for a minute if anyone else would like to answer this final question, and then we can get to the Q&A. We definitely didn't get to all the questions, but it's been a great like conversation. Cool. Well, it is Q&A time. If any of anyone who's tuning in or zooming in has any questions for our panelists, feel free to turn your mic on and ask, or you can also ask in the chat. Also, while we're waiting for questions, if any of the panelists have any announcements for any like upcoming work that they're doing, or events, or any kind of collaborations or community work, please feel free to jump on and promote any type of community work you're doing, or artwork, personal work, events.
Panelists add any websites or social media, or any way will help you chat box.
Yeah. Social media tags in the chat. Any questions? Anyone? Chas, would you like to mention the panel you'll be a part of tomorrow? You put it in the chat as well. Autumn, Three Sisters Collective is hosting. Would you like to talk a little bit about it, Autumn?
Sure. So Three Sisters Collective, who I haven't somehow mentioned yet, but I am a co-founder. We do a lot of work in Ogopoge or Santa Fe, and with Indigenous women and Indigenous families, where we'll be hosting a missing and murdered Indigenous relatives public event on May 5th, which is MMIW Awareness Day. And let's see, it will be from 5 till 8. It'll be appreciating the families, those affected, and celebrating the lives of the people that were lost or that we don't know where they are right now. And so there will be a lot of prayer and a lot of talking, and it's a really hard subject for me personally, not for any reasons except for it's so extreme. So if y'all would like to be a part of that, please come by, take a look at the Three Sisters Collective social media page, and we'll have all your updates there.
Awesome. Thank you, Autumn. Also, Chastity will be a part of a Pueblo Women in Farming panel tomorrow from 5:30 to 7:30 through Zoom. I'm excited for that one. Dr.
Yeah,
X
right.
said, artists, poets, and musicians, welcome to the Three Sisters collective event. That's exciting.
Yeah, I was gonna say just in time for a planting season. Yeah.
Well, since there aren't any questions, if you think of anything at all, feel free to put it in the chat, but I think we're gonna go ahead and move forward with our next thing, which is going to be, Chastity's going to be reading a poem for us to close us out.
Dang, I wasn't even ready. Let me get ready. Let me give me 3 minutes.
Talk more about art as activism.
We can have that conversation while I get ready.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I think that might be our last question then.
Well, Christina's putting some good points in the chat. Rafa, Lavina, Autumn, talk more about art as activism, a mechanism for social change, for POC as a mechanism for social change, especially in these times. What is the role of artists? To challenge the dominant culture. We're getting deep. This is the challenge question, the $1 million question.
Well, since it comes from my sister, okay. Right now, something that we're working on particularly is a collaboration with Mural Arts Philadelphia. And what the main project ended up being is Full Circle Farm, which is in Agua Fria, which is in Santa Fe, Ogopoge, but it's a different little section. But something that we have done as artists and artist helpers and youth is creating like a trail of murals that leads from the Ayamokna Museum, where right across the street from there, okay, as a Ogopoge Santa Fe native, some people say that there are kivas under that church. Some people have told me that across the street was where the original spring, the original White Shell Water Place was. So we were like fortunate enough to have that physical space. So starting from there, we have several murals done by us and people who are not related to us by blood, but they do related work. And it goes all the way down to the farm on the south side. And when our funders asked me, like, how does that relate to the farm? It's the farming, the artwork, all of it is just a reclamation of space. I don't know how many people remember when Santa Fe was like a family-friendly town and where most of the people who lived there looked like all of us. And that's the reality I grew up in. and it has changed so much. And so like violently, that as a person who lives there and experienced that gentrification my own self, I want to make sure that even if I'm totally like priced out of like my hometown, that that at least we have reminders of who we are and where we are. And maybe it started with graffiti in high school, but now I'm working with, you know, the big murals. I hope that answers the question a little bit, Dr.
I like that response. I definitely have been thinking a lot about is, you know, my community or my in Okewinge, you know, Española is like the community or is the city next to us. And there's definitely like gentrification happening, and it's been happening, and it happens gradually, and then it just like goes super fast. And then by the time people recognize it, it's already too late, you know, and I'm sort of seeing that here in the Española area. And like Three Sisters and other like collectives and organizations have done so much work around gentrification through art and through different events. And I'm just wondering like how, like, what would y'all's advice be as an artist be on like fighting and challenging, you know, like Christina said, the dominant culture as far as like gentrification goes in the community, especially when it's like, you know, happening, as opposed to being in a space where it's already happening and you're already doing the work for it. And there isn't a whole lot of acknowledgement of gentrification now. Like I'm living in a space right now where I'm having to rent because my tribe doesn't, my tribe, which is Okewinge, doesn't allow gay people to own a home in the Pueblo. And so I'm having to, you know, like rent outside of my own community. And also I'm like in a good spot right now where rent isn't so bad, you know, and I have a family and I have a farm. And so what happens when I have to move and I can't afford, you know, to live where I come from? And what is like some advice as an artist for other artists and younger artists who can challenge this and fight against this? I don't like saying fight so much, but I can't think of anything else to say. Cathy's probably shaking her head at my language right now.
Can I just jump in there? Because it goes back to us talking about not only how you value your art, but who values your art. In my personal experience, I find that I can create as many murals and as many cultural, well, not like cultural art, but I can depict my reality as much as I want. And a white person from Connecticut is never gonna care, but y'all will care. And that is, you know, that's the big thing for me. Who will see this mural? Sure, lots of white people will see this mural. Will they understand it? Will they have it in a context that, will they understand the context? No, but it's not for them. This mural, it's for Pueblo people and Tewa people and indigenous people who really need to be acknowledged as the people who took care of our land, you know? The land of Ogapoge of Santa Fe has been really good to me. It has helped me make the person I am, even for like a city kid. So yeah, it comes down to acknowledging the fact that not everybody is going to get your story, and you can go either way. You can communicate your story in a way that they will understand, or you can continue to communicate, and the people who agree with you, or the people who see themselves in what you're creating, they'll understand.
Thank you, Autumn. We have some great comments in the chat. Beata said, we fight when we need to, always have. 1680. Chasity said, I think what artists do best is hold space for each other and ourselves, something that capitalism teaches us we shouldn't do. Thank you. On that note, Chas, are you ready?
I am ready. Sorry, I was
Yeah.
wondering which poem I should do. I was gonna share one about my experience, but it's too long. It's like a story almost. So I chose one in the spirit of, yeah, just thinking about holding space and what was mentioned earlier, just imagining. I think part of like writing and part of creating something is what was mentioned, which is like, how do we, like for me, when my health was really tough, like I had to sit there and just imagine what the next year could look like, or even 2 years. And I think that was like my lifeline for me, was just imagining and writing. And I think, yeah, it goes with how we imagine as artivists or activists in art, imagine worlds for our community. So that being said, I wrote this poem one time and I don't think I ever shared it out loud, but it's called A Resolution. And yeah, I'll just go ahead and do it. Okay, so it's called A Resolution. Let it be resolved that Indigenous food sovereignty is our lifeline. Let it be resolved, whereas we pledge to honor the first treaties, like water, and allegiance to the farmers' knowledge that could save the world, because they know when the water is off, taking shifts, as if she was sick too. Contamination from oil spills and mining drills know no bounds. They know no color, no gender. They will trickle in every point of Kupashtawitz's body. So when they tell us what happens to our lands, happens to our bodies, I believe it, because trauma sits its nest in my hip. And I've always wondered if any of my lovers could feel her pain come crashing at the city of my nerves that sit at the bottom of my spine. When I lie awake at night to the sounds of angry tsunamis wavering in the garden, the wind, it's angry tonight, I say to myself silently. At least there is some moisture in the morning, even if it's our mother's tears crying out loud. Thunderstorms were always spiked my nervous system. Whereas I wonder what kind of blind storms do we live in to bring our mother to her knees, our earth mother, when she cries out asking what are we doing to her? Whereas let it be known that we were born in the celestial trails that you see in the darkest of skies, winter sanctuaries, farmers taking their cornmeal to meet the first star's face, the sun, in prayer, in preparation, in love for the creation of beauty in the upcoming ceremony of planting season. Whereas we are not our ancestors' wildest dreams, we are the prodigy of their hardest preparation to get us to where we are today. Whereas under the same winter sky home, the self-determination sometimes looks like younger brothers coming to you asking, how do we continue to stay alive? Sometimes it comes in the forms of this moonlit cold where it's lonely and the sound of Kid Cudi plays in the back of your room. Sometimes it comes in depressive episodes when you lay there wondering if life is still worth living. Whereas it comes in the forms of seeing the worlds as we know them when they are written on our hands, and it's the seeds that bring us to our knees. Self-determination, self-preservation, some people call that hope. Moonlit nights where we are the only ones alive, and you breathe in that cold reservation air, the kind that takes your breath away. Not all illnesses are visible, I am learning. Some house themselves in the depths of our heartstrings, and unexplainable memories of the first steps of conquest come pulling at mine most nights when I wake up in cold sweats. They call those night terrors, constellations of truths to be told, and words transform into the stars painted in the sky. Shivers got me caught up in time. Then we are transported into the daybreak's loving reality, the morning sun, a promise to a better day. Whereas me and my siblings don't talk about what happened the night before, the days we laid there lying, thinking about what it would like to join our cousin
in the world after this one. A female farmer among an army of toxic masculine men. We talk about my dad seeing the strength in our recoveries to the world's best view of Indigenous youth, that we only want to be set free. He saw this, prayed on this, planted for this, planted in the name of the community's future, that we could be the next leaders. Sister knows how to take care of our animals. Brothers knows medicines. And I, only seeing that our seeds want to be set free too. A family who knows no colonial boundaries when we are our truest, most sacred selves. Whereas these are our lifelines on these cold winter nights. These are our lifelines when we think about not continuing anymore. When we contemplate life and death, like life and death, we are in this dance of inspiration and creation, whereas Indigenous food sovereignty is the link to our lifeline, unearthing of griefs, the way beings uncurl to life into our hearts. This is where we learn to love ourselves, love ourselves, love ourselves, love ourselves, love our communities, in the place of unfair ways of viewing our brown skin, and that we are taught in this white supremacist project. This is where we learn to see our lives, our knowledge, our worth, our skin as radiant and abundant. And some days this is all we have to live for. And on other days, it's all we need, whereas we are the prodigy of the first dreamers, first believers, first scientists, first healers, the first singers, the first movement, honoring all creation has given us, whereas I ask the question, what happens when our ancestors leave? What would accolades mean anymore? And which seeds do we bury first? And have you ever heard of so much hurt? Mother salt tears. Grandma tells me to mix her gently and see how she blossoms in our reflections. Places with longitude and latitude lines, maps to great grandmother who rests peacefully on the mountain. I miss her and her guidance. When grandma calls me tearing through this COVID-19 experience, I want to tell her, Grandma, look down. Look at the power in your hands, the way they sway to the anthems of your teachings, the way they've taught me that seeds are no different than our children. Maybe that's why we write them like a stain in which our sounds of our hearts can never refrain from loving, from seeing the joy in our children's eyes as they come into their own growth with the corn. Whereas the way grown men finally know how to stay afloat, how to do the most when it comes to loving their seed kin, their children, tears finally know the touch of their sweet chins, and he holds them for a better day. His tears look like the hues of brown and orange. I hold them with the beans, just as you told me to. I sing to them, pray to them, tell them I love them 4 or 3 times a day, like sirens in my head. I listened to that song today, the ambulance zooming by, create an ambiance, a theatrical sound. Goodness, I miss the movies, but these movies are more real. Stuck in this house, stuck in this pandemic, we all know where the ambulance is headed. Another death, 4 generations living in the midst of a pandemic. Be strong, grandmother, I whispered to myself. These purple hues know nothing but joy. I whisper, holding on to the beans she taught me how to sew this summer. The babies come into the world, a stronger knowingness. It sounds like an anthem to the beauty, our women's of unorchestrated laughter, the kind and the unseen, dancing to the soliloquy of one's own breath, whereas our culture was born in the name of consent and taken in fragmentations of lack thereof, forceful expectations of the sacred. Whereas I lay in my mother's lap crying, asking Creator, how did they take our women, children, and our seeds without our permission? Whereas, do you see the way our crops' arms to move to the sink to our words? Someone is always there with me when I plant them, these words, these seeds, whereas we learn of the sacred within ourselves, on our tongues and our tired hands as they pull and work the earth, studying the ways of reciprocity or living with our beloveds, living with gratitude, living with tenacity and ferocity, undoing this food assimilation, undoing this food colonization, unfolding commodification, disrupting the fabrication of the atrocious legacies that our beating hearts are left to revolt. Whereas I asked my mother, grandmother, do you see how much we love you? Do you see how much we love these seeds? Do you see how much we love ourselves? A work that has taken a lifetime to develop, whereas let it be resolved that Indigenous food sovereignty is our lifeline. Thank you.
Ooh, thank you, Chasity.
Thank you so much, Kunda, Chasity. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I love poetry that makes me like my heart jump out of my chest, and also I'm like bouncing out of my chair with like the words are so inspiring and beautiful. Thank you so much. So we're gonna go ahead and now let Elder Cathy do the closing blessing. So if you all can